Your Kansas City Chiefs got a win in the preseason game number 2, the most important one. And we saw a lot of key things develop that we're going to go over today. A lot to cover from the offensive line to the defensive backfield. And most importantly, what did Patrick Mahomes and his crew show us right now that they can do? Will we see him again? We might not, but there's a lot going on. Let's get into it today. This is Chiefs Breakdown on RGR Football. Welcome back, everybody. We're having a couple of glitches. I'm recording this because I want to make sure that we cover it all. For those of you that are new to the channel, I'm Ryan Tracy. This is me going rogue and getting things done on the Kansas City Chiefs and the NFL. If you want some of the new threads, they're available up there. This is Rogue Nation here in Chiefs Kingdom. You can get that in the RGR store. I hope that you guys are excited. A lot to go over. And it really comes down to the number one takeaway is that we should be very happy with where Patrick Mahomes and the offense is. And it doesn't feel to me like we're going to see much else out of them. Could they get a drive in the final preseason game? Possibly. Do they need to? Probably not. The offensive line most likely will be out there, but I'm talking about the specialists, Mahomes, Kelsey in particular, and then everybody else that will kind of have diminishing snap counts as we move away from the stars down to the guys that are trying to get into the starting lineup. Those guys like Justin Watson, Sky Moore, you're going to see them more in the final preseason game. But they've shown enough right now that my confidence level is very, very high. There's been all kinds of dialogue this whole offseason about what's Patrick going to do without Tyreek Hill? Well, the answer is he's going to do everything he always does. It's going to be the Patrick Mahomes offense. And this ties back to what I talked about a few weeks ago in that I really believe that the deep defensive shells that teams threw at Patrick last year were to defeat him, not necessarily to defeat Tyreek. So I do think they're going to start the season with seeing more of that. And I think what Patrick's doing in distributing the ball and getting it out, getting it around is really going to help that process and make sure that they're able to weather that storm, shift their offensive mentality, and continue to hit the open guys and take those yards. In the end, it's all about this. This is the theme of the season. Believe 2022 because it is going to be different, but it is going to be just as viable, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of a lot of folks. So I'm not too concerned. We're going to have plenty of time to go over the details, but we're going to start here really in what this show is all about. And if you're new to me and to this channel, me and my staff, we go at Kansas City Chiefs football from 360. Every angle that we can find, you'll get all kinds of player evaluation breakdowns from me. You'll get film from me. You'll get analytics from me. You're going to get all kinds of the same. Dan, tons of film review, a lot of reports, a lot of player evaluation. Gary McKenzie's going to run down the analytics for you. All the high-end math that the league is going to more and more is going to be Gary. We have Seth Kaiser, as you all know, the Chief in the North is always here. He's going to have two for you this coming season. A quick hitter on Monday. Well, quick for Seth anyway. And then the Chief in the North show on Thursdays. And then we have Big Chief Sean. We have the guys from Rogue Head Huddle. They are for the members. You guys want to join the memberships below, click join and join at the rookie level and above. And you get the extra content. Dan's rants, Gooch Life, Rogue Head Huddle, my temper tantrums from time to time that don't end up on the main channel. But in the end, we're all about this, and that is Patrick Mahomes and what he's going to bring to, you want to call it a new offense. I don't necessarily agree that that's the right thing to call it because he's still the focus point of it. He's still the guy that has to run it all. And in the end, that's what he's going to do, and it's not going to be very questionable, to tell you the truth. I thought what we saw, and we're going to go over my notes today. That's what this show is. This is our supplement to the breakdown. The Chiefs Breakdown show is always the post game on Sundays. It will follow the game schedule. So if they're on Monday or they're on Thursday, you'll get the breakdown. This is a supplement because I was live last night, and now I'm going deep dive into my notes. So if you guys want to support the channel, you can grab some gear. You can hit the super chats or the super thanks. If you do leave a super chat tonight while I'm not live, I will answer them at the very beginning of Monday night's live Q&A at 6 Central like I do every week. That's where you can find it, and that's where you'll get your answers. So if you want to support the channel that way, really happy to have that, and I will definitely answer every super chat to begin the show tomorrow night. And then once we get into the regular season, this show will be live on Sundays after the games, just like always. So we'll be back to that kind of thing. And this is, again, the focus. My notes are going to revolve around that. And this deep dive actually is kind of a cool format because normally I go through what stood out in my notes initially on the breakdown. This has allowed me to go back and watch some plays and actually take a deeper look at some of the things that I had already noted. And a lot of it in the first half came back to Patrick. And it's just the expectation that he doesn't have the receiving core and what's he going to do and oh my, boo-hoo and all that kind of crap. It's not the truth. The truth is he's got to adjust, yes, but he's got plenty of options to do it. Now, I personally think the biggest surprise in the receiving core is Justin Watson. A lot of folks thought they saw that coming. It's always different when you get with a new quarterback. And so I was trying not to relate what Justin was in Tampa Bay to what he is here, but he has clearly won a spot. It's not a question anymore. It's not an if. He's the fifth wide receiver. End of story. He's getting way more play on the offense than Fountain is, than Gordon is, anybody besides Justin Watson. He is the 5. Game over. Sky Moore is the 4. Game over. It is McColl and Juju and MVS as your starting 3. That's what you'll see week 1. Unless somebody tweaks an ankle or does something to get themselves out of commission for week 1, that's going to be the lineup. The question comes down to Jarice Fountain has the inside curve on wide receiver 6 because he will play all the special teams. Josh Gordon does not do that. And I know Josh got a lot of snaps yesterday, and a lot of folks have been talking about him. And I do have a couple of things. It was close on a couple of plays, and I did take notes about Josh. But it wasn't enough, and it wasn't with Mahomes. And no matter what, as we go through all these points today, you're going to get a theme going on here. If it's not with Mahomes, it can't be bought and paid for. Plays you make with Michelle are great. Plays you make with Crum are great. But it doesn't necessarily buy you playing time with the ones and with QB1, one Patrick Mahomes. So it's got to be kind of relegated into those tiers, basically. So the pass catchers are pretty set aside. I talked last night at length about Watson and particularly Jody Fortson. And I know some of you are going to say, well, you've been talking about him for 3 years. Why are you still doing it? Is he really going to pay off? Well, it's been a progression. And quite frankly, I do feel if it wasn't for injury last year, Jody Fortson would have been the 3rd or 4th leading receiver on this roster if he'd been healthy for a season. I think that's delayed what we're going to see this year. And so, yes, I believe it even more than I have in the past. And clearly, and most importantly, so does Patrick Mahomes. That's what changes for Jody Fortson in getting those repetitions. Now, I still like the fact that they're trying to build up Noah Gray, and I do think he's the 3 right now. I know Blake Bell is out, and I know they love Blake Bell. If they have a choice, they'll keep him. I don't know what this injury is going to do to his availability, and we're going to have to see that. But on taking a step back, I go back and I look even more, and there were multiple times, but one in particular, on the one where Gray made that great catch, they were running vertical routes with 4 receivers. I don't know if it's the same exact tempo and spacing that they had on their 4 verts last season and the season before. But the point is they're not backing off. At times, they're still going to flood the deep zones and try to attack downfield. It's about the look. It's about the coverage shell that Patrick feels comfortable in exploiting. And quite frankly, if Noah Gray's going to make plays and Justin Watson's going to make plays, you got to expect the rest of the starters are going to make plays. It's still a viable thing. No offense in this league can exist without taking deep shots. If you do, you're relegated to failure. You must probe the defense. It's part of any game plan, and it must be. It will still be with Patrick Mahomes and this receiver crew. It's just not going to look like it did before because it's not going to be hold, and wait for Tyreek to break open. It's going to be those routes are going XYZ. I need to hit my timing, likely more at 3.5 seconds, and then he'll scramble. The scramble drill is going to be important. I think, honestly, people were down on MVS yesterday. I'm not. That's a chemistry thing that is still in development. It's the finest of when you break a route up versus when you break a route off. Those are 2 very different things, and it will come for them. I don't think that there's any problem there. Another nice thing is that one of the touchdowns to Fortson was a back shoulder throw. That's not something Patrick does a ton, but we like to see that. That's a little bit of a different wrinkle. multiple times where they ran 13 personnel. And for those of you who don't know that, I got some Twitter questions. 13 personnel is 3 tight ends. 1 back, 3 tight ends. That's 13. 13 is what we're looking for. That's the advantage that they have. And Jody showed it in particular because on that first touchdown, he was split out as a wide receiver. Now you can run 13, put them all in line as an H and a couple of Ys and bang the ball up inside for some run yards. And then you can come back in the exact formation that the defense has now adjusted to and put more linebackers onto the field. And you can split all those tight ends out. They could all run routes as wide receivers. And that will create mismatches where you have tight ends in Fortson and Gray and Kelsey on linebackers. And that's a win all day long. So it's going to be very difficult for defenses to try to figure out what personnel they need to be in order to prevent the Chiefs from doing what they did yesterday. And that's the key to this season. Put them where they ain't, get the mismatches, and deliver the ball to whoever has the best option. That's Patrick's job. It's a little bit more managerial, I know, but nobody wants to say that. But it is more about identification and execution, not impromptu playmaking. That will happen. It is Patrick. He's never going to stop that. But if he can hit on time and get the ball out and hit the receivers, this tempo of this offense is going to be crushing teams. If you saw what Josh Allen did to the Denver Broncos, that's what we're talking about. A lot that can come from that and a lot in a big positive way. Now, I do also want to make sure that I don't spend too much time just on Patrick because, he's the golden goose. But there are other guys making plays. And this is one that I definitely want to point out because L'Jarius Sneed had a big play early, and it didn't look like he really did anything because of the camera angle. And that's why I want to point this out. And this image is taken from what is a great point of view. And this is that he came underneath the route and played back through Diamond Brown's hands here in taking that ball away. Nearly had it picked himself, where Brown is now the defender in this picture. And that's what it's all about. And that's why I said a few months ago, I think L'Jarius Sneed is going to lead this team in PBUs. I think one of the safeties has the better chance to take the ball away more and have more interceptions. But I think L'Jarius Sneed will lead this team in PBUs because he has all the instincts. Now, I know folks were worried the first week against the Bears where he didn't get his head around on that one play that did go for some yardage where he could have, that he had that option. He has more options than even my lighting system has at this point. So there's a lot going on there. But this is why he's going to make these plays, because he's positionally where he has the speed to catch up and he understands how to attack the ball. Whether it's still in the air or whether it's in the grasp, he can take it away. We saw some of this in practice, and this is a theme that I think is an upping of the aggression level of the DBs in order to not just deny the pass the first time, but if you can't deny the pass and it gets completed, take that thing away, chop that thing out. You saw multiple players, even on the sidelines as plays were ending yesterday, they're in regular season form and trying to strip that ball out. That's going to be key because takeaways is what's going to make the difference in some games this year. There's going to be a lot of tight games, particularly with the Los Angeles Chargers, with the Bills, I think even with the Bucks, depending on whatever happens with their quarterback situation. I guess he'll show up eventually. I don't know. But it's going to be about playing not through the pass, but through the whistle and trying to take that ball away. Turnovers are going to be a huge deal. And it's not just the experienced guys, because Josh Williams had some really great plays yesterday too. I thought Williams took what was a solid performance against the Bears and he upped his level of play. And that's really encouraging. That's what you need to see. Now, there's still a trend here. I talked about it yesterday on last night's stream, is he's playing 80 to 90% of the snap and feeling like it's done. And that's what happens when you play at Fayetteville State and you can dominate coverage and mirror like he can. He's still doing a very, very good job of that. It's that last bit. It's that last bit of body positioning, depending on where the ball placement is. He's got to be able to process the ball trajectory a little bit quicker and play through the end of the play. And then he's going to be not only making PBUs, but he's going to get some turnovers as well. I thought it was a really positive day out for all of the DBs. And don't take it lightly. The fact that I'm not mentioning Trent McDuffie is a good thing because he did a lot. Let's see. Where's the other one that I need to show you guys? Oh, it was not Josh. Sorry. I have another one, but Jalen Watson as well was another guy that stood up his game from what it was against the Bears, from what it was against the week before, and he is coming on. Now, Rashad Fenton pulled a groin is what Andy Reid reported it as. It looked more significant than that to me. Andy said that it's not too worrisome. I hope that's the way that it works out. If not, it will be worrisome. And they have to make sure that they can get that done, because right now, what you see here with Jay Will is what they need to have. But if Rashad Fenton is not available, it pushes not only Jay Will into a position that he's going to play a lot of reps, but it pulls Jalen Watson up to where he's going to have to play a good amount of reps as well, because you have to have a rotation. L'Jarius, McDuffie are going to be your solids. They're going to play every game unless they're injured. They're going to be out there every snap unless they're injured. And they're going to be the guys that other teams have to game plan around. Then it should be Fenton. If it's not Fenton, it's Jay Will. If it's not Jay Will, it should be Jalen. And then it gets questionable. I think Boodle played more snaps yesterday. As the snaps count came out this morning, Boodle played more snaps than even I had expected. And I was happy to see that, because I think Najee Johnson is a little bit overwhelmed, to tell you the truth. I think he relies on his athleticism. He's got a good amount of it, so he can get by with that. But I'm not so sure that in the end that's going to hold up in the regular season. So I was glad to see Boodle get some things done. Now, in the end, it comes down to execution. And so if Boodle can do that, great. If he can't, then you have to move on to the next player, because you have to have a fifth that is ready to go, and you have to have a sixth that's ready in case. He's that alert five fighter from Top Gun, right? He's got to be ready if you got to pull him off the deck. That's what's key right now. And they have to keep searching for that at this point. Now, a couple of things that I didn't like. Quarterback play is still a concern to me beyond Chad Henne and Patrick Mahomes. That's okay. They're not going to keep anybody else there. Those of us who know Rogue Nation and how they work, it's going to be two quarterbacks. It's going to be, in case of emergency, bring in the third from the practice squad. Now, Bichelle had a couple of flashes, but the majority of his offense was done with his legs. And that's not what you want. I thought the offensive line, again, struggled at the backup level. The starters were okay. I'd like to see them get a little bit more push, but they got pushed at times. I think it was 50-50. It looked very similar, maybe a touch improved from last season in the run game, what the offensive line was able to do. It's still not where it needs to be, but it's improving. The backups are not the case. The interior three are okay. The tackles are atrocious, and it's going to be troublesome. And that's a lot of why Bichelle was running around. The problem was that Bichelle's control is questionable, and he nearly got Coleman decapitated here on this play. Very dangerous play for him. And it's just a lack of vision, a lack of awareness of where the defenders are on the field. And that's what goes back to, if you have to have somebody other than Chad Henne back up Patrick Mahomes, or if Chad comes in and he gets hurt, because Chad still wants to run. I'm not sure why, but he still wants to run. Chad, don't run anywhere, buddy. In the end, if that does have to happen, they're in serious trouble, because it's going to get some guys hurt if you have one of the depth guys at quarterback in either Bichelle or Crum. At this rate, I think they're both practice squad players at best, and I don't think either of them should or will make the 53. Checking out more of my notes, specifically on the tackles. The one intrigue, the one thing that I found that was really interesting is when they changed them out, it was Christian at right and Prince Tegawanaga at the 2 on the left. Later in the game, Prince switched over to right. He got beat pretty badly, even by third teamers. So I'm not encouraged by that. But it does show me that they're still searching for an in-house idea of who could be a swing tackle, who could come in and play some reps. Unfortunately, none of them look like they can play well enough to get through a ball game. Unfortunately, draft pick Darian Kennard looks like he's getting worse, not getting better. And I don't know if that's an attitude thing. I don't know if it's a conceptual problem with what they're asking him to do, but it is noticeable that his snaps went down, and his snaps went further down the depth chart against the threes. He was still not very functional. I would say 50-50 mediocre at best, to tell you the truth. So who has swing potential? It's pretty much Prince or Jaron Christian. And I'm not comfortable with either of those options. So they still have an acquisition to come. Watch these cut downs. On Tuesday, they have to be down to 80. That's 5 more cuts right now. Next Tuesday, they have to be down to 53. So there's a slew of cuts. In that potential is, I think, where they're going to have to find their backup long-term swing tackle for the season. That said, what I did like is that even though the offensive tackles were getting dusted, when they chose to run straight ahead, they got a little bit more push at the backup and particularly at the third level line, going downhill, which I think, again, is something that Gore responds to better. Clearly, it was CEH, then McKinnon for a couple plays, and then Pacheco took a volume that was pretty impressive. Gore got a little bit in there. So they're still trying to mix it up. And again, if you're going downhill, I think Gore responded pretty well to that. The defensive side, I was pretty happy with as well. But obviously, Jody made two of the biggest plays of this game. I can't even say enough about positioning and use of his advantages. I mean, this amount of separation on what is a back shoulder throw is impressive for a guy who A, was just hurt a week ago, and B, had his whole last season taken, ironically, against this same ball team, against the Washington Commanders, although they weren't the Commanders at the time. We talked about Justin Watson. He's coming on. Where he plays, I think, is great. I see some folks on Twitter and stuff throwing around the idea that he's wide receiver 1. He's not. He's not close. Wide receiver 1 is Juju Smith-Schuster. Wide receiver 2 is MVS, and number 3 is McCole Hardman, and it's not changing. Not from anything that we saw in the preseason. But what this means is that you can have an injury like you have right now. You could even have 2, and you have a viable candidate along with Sky Moore, who is the 4, to come in and move the ball. And it doesn't have to become the Travis Kelce show. It doesn't have to be focused on everything there. You can continue to keep this wider array of options for Patrick Mahomes. And that's what it comes down to, getting wins. Justin Watson, I have been really pleasantly surprised with it. I didn't think he'd make this roster because everything I'd seen previously in camps, in preseason games that I went back and checked with Tom Brady and that kind of thing, there was a chemistry there. He was okay, but it wasn't to this level. He's improved his game, and playing with Patrick and even Bichelle, who we saw him play with last week, has really made the difference. And so it isn't just 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1.5 from Patrick equals 17. That's kind of the way that it goes. Some guys just get a chemistry or get a knack for understanding each other that helps them outperform what they've done in the past. Again, when you have a guy like this, that's what it comes back to. And he's not alone, but he is still the focus point. I think we all know that, and we should know that if we don't already. Then it comes down to the rest of the guys. Defensive line. Danny Shelton played like 7 snaps. That's okay. I know there's some concern there, but he's still ramping up. Only practiced for a week. I thought he looked good on first and second, like in terms of being able to take on doubles. He wasn't getting much penetration. There was a lot of passing at the time. But when it was against the run, he chased down backside. I saw good effort. He played a little bit vertical, got a little bit too high. But again, that's part of conditioning as well. And Danny Shelton's going to play into that rotation. Right now, I think he's on the roster. Obviously, Chris Jones and Derek Nottie are your starters. And Nottie, playing with some different guys, had a couple of really nice plays yesterday, in particular in being able to shed a block and still get down the line horizontally in the run game in particular. So Jones, Nottie, I think Shelton's in. And it comes down to who's going to make this roster. Turk Wharton took the snaps for Chris Jones. I thought he looked explosive. He had a couple of secondary moves that I think are really upping his game at this point and will in the regular season. And he had a couple plays where he got pushed out and taken out of the play too often. So he's still got to play with a lower butt level. His pads are okay, but he's got to get his butt down to be able to take on some of those doubles more effectively and not get washed down the line. And he's got to get, yet again, more aggressive. I think this is all he and the next guy we'll talk about are all coming on because of Joe Cullen. I think they just need more. They need a steady diet of go get it more aggression. And that comes down to Colin Saunders. I know he got the penalty. That was ticky-tack. I think that was more an overreaction of protecting the opposing quarterback by the ref than it was, a legitimate call. But Colin Saunders is on this roster. It's done. Because Dante Stallworth showed just barely enough against threes that Saunders was making plays that he can't make. He's quicker. He's better with his hands. He's more aggressive. He's harder to move out. And for all that, at playing at he's probably 340 at this point, maybe 330. I don't mean to overinflate you there, Colin. But Colin Saunders deserves to be on this roster over Stallworth. So for my money right now, it is Jones, Nottie, Turk, Colin, and Shelton. We'll see if that's the way that it works out here in the next week. There's a lot coming, but that's the way I think it's going to shake out. I thought Dickerson did enough to get himself on the practice squad. I do believe he's eligible. We'll check that out as well. I think Stallworth, I don't think he's eligible. I could be wrong. But I at this point, he's down with the threes for a reason. I don't see a lot of upside either. If you guys heard me talk when he first came over, he was a one-hit wonder in Indy, and I think in this scheme, it's just not working very well. Let's see. When it comes to the linebackers, I think your starters are Nick Bolton's midseason form already. He looks quicker, and more importantly, he looks quicker to change his direction. I think that's really the key to what we've seen here in the preseason, that he's just more comfortable and he's more confident in making the decisions. Willie looks great. Willie saying that he wants to lead all linebackers in interceptions this year has me very excited because he has the capability and he's showing the recognition to do that. So we're set there. Leo Chanel got the start, not the start. Elijah Lee got the start at Sam, but Leo Chanel played with the ones at Sam, and that was a big bump. Now, he played a lot of reps too. So it's not a 1-for-1. In fact, let me pull up, make sure exactly how many he played because I do not recall off the top of my head. But yeah, it was, over 30%, kind of scattered out. And I think that that's really good for him because that means that he's getting more looks and he's going to have more options in different situational football that he can come in and play. So very happy with him and what he's putting out. Beyond him, I'm concerned, because I didn't think Carter did anything to stand out. Let's see we'll go back to my notes here. I didn't think that Carter stood out in any way that was positive. I didn't think Mike Rose or Jack Cochran stood out in any way that were overly positive. I'm just not certain about what they got there. Darius Harris coming in with the twos at the green dot is a threat to Carter and all the young guys. If Mike Rose and Jack Cochran end up on the practice squad, I think that's great. And I think they should, because attrition at the position will come at some point, and you want to have somebody to call up. And those guys can play special team snaps at the very minimum. And I'm very confident with them. They're both athletic, and I like what they do. I just don't know that they're ready to play against NFL competition yet. So right now, I would think Darius Harris still has a slight edge over both of them and Jermaine Carter. I don't think Carter's athleticism is there enough to play in this defense. And that's the whole way that it's going, is it's got to be quicker. As we move on, forgot to go over the defensive ends. Karlaftis, I'm going to break down his sack tomorrow. Really, really nice way to put it together. He still shows everything that I saw in Purdue film, but now he's adding some techniques. And that's really the place where he could really up his game by adding technique and getting more diverse in the way he attacks tackles. That's important because that will let him rise to the next level. Everybody was really hyped about his bend after week one. I still don't see like the bend really changing in contact that much. His pad level's doing well, and he's putting more ways to attack the tackle in line, and that's going to make a difference. I'm really excited for him. He showed exactly everything we saw in film. Great first step explosiveness and great effort. He's going to play to the whistle every single time, and that's going to be his calling card, and it's going to work. I'm really happy for him. After that, it was Malik Herring that came in next. It was not Josh Kando, who ended up playing more snaps, but way deep into the 3s and 4s. It was Herring that came in beyond Frank, Dana, not Carlos, and George. And so I think Herring bought himself some rest with the Chicago game. I thought he looked good here. I thought his extension was great. I thought his functional power was great. I still want to see that first step explosiveness that I still don't see what he had in college. That's just a function of the knee, and that's part of the recovery process. He will get there. But I think he's making his claim right now to be on this roster as one of the depth pieces. I'd have to check, but I don't know how many snaps Carlos Dunlop played, and that's a question for me because I didn't see any report about him being hurt in any way. And I'm just going to do a quick search here just to make sure I didn't miss it, because I'd hate to single somebody out. No, he did not play. Carlos Dunlap did not play, and I'm not sure what that means. I haven't seen any media about it. Hopefully Andy gets asked about it, and we get an explanation. So with that said, I thought Herring taking that step forward, he's in the mix to carve out himself a spot on this roster. Kano, I think, needs to go to the practice squad. He needs another year to incubate and see what he can become. I know they said he had that knockdown. The quarterback threw it at his head. It's not any kind of thing that he did. So that was a little bit misleading. Najee Johnson in at corner very late. I think it was drive 8 that he came in. Again, I think that's start of knocking him down. And kudos to Fleet Davis. That last touchdown, I thought it was a nice run. They finally got some things done. I thought Crum came in and did okay. Kennard was not aggressive and kind of way too laid back for me. Powell had a couple of nice catches. Again, that's a positive thing for him, but at that level of competition, that's not buying you away onto the roster. Doing that against threes doesn't help you. Same thing with Kennard. Being able to perform against fours doesn't help you. What does help you is Jalen Watson, I thought, stood out on special teams as well, playing that gunner. So I was really happy for him in the way that he was attacking that and making something out of it. So just to go over my bigger takeaways, we talked about the situations with the backup tackles, Fenton, Shelton, then Kennard and Dickerson, I think, need to go to the practice squad. I think Kennard needs to go to the practice squad as well. I don't think anybody's going to pick him up. And quite frankly, you made an investment in him. I think it can be salvaged. But they got to figure out what the problem is, because I don't see the aggression I saw in college. His feet were decent week 1 in preseason. I didn't think they were that good against the Commanders. So there's something going on there. I don't know exactly what it is, but we're going to get down to the bottom of it. That's my notes on this second preseason game. We'll have an abbreviated breakdown after the third preseason game, because we're not going to see many people play, at least in terms of starters. So who's going to grab their job? That's what we'll talk about after that game. We have Chief in the North. We have everything coming for you. I'm going to break down Karloftis. We have Dan. We have Gary. We have everything coming. Q&A is tomorrow, as well as the Chief in the North mini-ep that you're going to get from Seth tomorrow. So be prepared. If you don't know us and you've sat through this video all this way, thank you very much, and welcome to Rogue Nation. Make sure that you're a subscriber right now. Hit that sub, hit the like button for me. That would help. And become a member if you want to get deeper into the details, the X's and O's, the evaluations, the techniques, all of it. We have a ton coming for you. I'm pretty excited. Thanks for spending this time with me. Seth tomorrow morning, me tomorrow night live at 6 to answer all your questions. And for all you super chatters, I will get you answered at the top of the show tomorrow. Thank you for this one. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.